Hi, I'm Andrea and welcome to Productive C#. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use a code behind approach for your Blazor components. Here I have a simple Blazor application and I want to show you how you can convert the fetch data Razor component using a code behind approach. So what does that mean? As you can see here, the fetch data.razor file contains both the markup and the C# code required in order to render your page. What we want to do is to separate the C# code from the markup into its own file. This is something you might have done already if you work with Windows, for example, when you separated your XAML files from your C#. Why you want to do this? It's mostly a way to simplify the way you organize your code, especially if you have a big component that contains a lot of markup and a lot of code, and you want to separate the two into different files that you can manage independently. This is a way to separate the responsibilities, one for markup and one for the code, and it's also a way to get better tooling experience. As you know, Visual Studio is very good at working with C# files directly, while if you use C# directly inside a Razor file, the tooling might not be as good as the normal tooling you have in a C# file. At the end of the day, this is just a preference. So for small components, it might make sense to carry on using the default single file experience. But if your application becomes more complex, you might want to do this. So let's see how I can convert this fetch data.razor component into using this approach. First of all, I need to create a new C# class that has the same name as your component. In this case, fetch data.razor, and the extension is CS. As soon as you do that, Visual Studio is showing your class inside the .razor file. This class needs to implement components base. The component base is effectively the base class. Component base is the base class for all your Blazor components. So all your Blazor components inherit from this class, and you also need to make this class partial. You can remove all the unnecessary namespaces, and there we go. Now we have a code behind ready. The next step is to go to the Razor file, copy the C# code from the code section. You can remove the code section at this point, and move all this code inside the class. Then you need to resolve all the using namespaces that are missing. The reason why you didn't have to do that in the Razor file was because we have an imports.razor file here that includes a bunch of namespaces that are automatically imported in Razor files for you. But if you move to a separate file, you need to add the using yourself manually, as you do normally in C#. And that's pretty much it. You can move other stuff, for example, this directive here that is injecting the HTTP service into your class. Instead of using this inject directive, you can move this one in the code, and instead of using this directive, basically this is simply using an attribute and convert this into a property. They need to have a setter so that the framework knows how to inject the dependencies. So you have in the program.cs here a dependencies that has been added as a service, the HTTP client, and inside your C# class, you use the inject attribute to say, I want these dependencies to be injected. Now, all the C# code for the fetch data page is inside a C# file, and all the markup is inside here. And I can remove any unnecessary using statements. Now, if I press F5, the project should work as before, and this fetch data page simply connect to the server, get some data, and display that on the screen. So if we've done this operation correctly, everything should carry on working as normally. Now the application is running. It takes a few seconds to start. There we go, it's loading. Then I click on the Fetch Data page, and as you can see, all the data has been loaded successfully. So you can repeat the same approach for all your components, or all the components you want to convert using the code behind approach, if you prefer this way of working. So the advantages are the same as any other experience that you already have for Windows application, for example. That is basically separation of responsibilities, the ability to use C# tooling completely in your C# files, and basically a way to reduce the size of a single file and split that into two, having the markup in one side and the code in the other. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching.